back at it again with the white vans, and I'm here to have another video. God damn it! Hi everybody. Yo, what's up guys? The Insane Game Freak here. Know it's been a while, but back at it again with another video. And there's been some news after the last one. There's also been some fun entertainment from my last video. Thank you guys for the support. I appreciate it. It kind of baffled me how much you guys wanted me to get on her. Apparently, she has amassed a small little group of people who are just like, I'm sick of your shit. So if I was able to help you vent through that video, you're welcome. Glad you enjoyed it. But before we get into this video, like always, subscribe if you want to, like the video, click the post notification bell to get notified when I make new videos, and follow me on the social medias. Specifically, probably Twitch and Twitter are the two most important ones currently. And like I said, thanks for the support. So, there's been some announcements since the last time I made a video, which would be, the Lite had just gotten announced. But on top of that, we got this news that they're making essentially I guess you can call it a refresh of the Nintendo Switch. I think there's a bunch of gamers who own a Switch that never own like a Nintendo handheld and don't know how the cycle works. So I think there's a misconception of what's going on because there's been like this high obsession with a Pro Switch. People need to understand something. The Pro version of a console is a new concept in general. Now it wasn't like it wasn't attempted before, but the difference was the way it was attempted before was like an add-on. It's like, for example, the Sega CD, or even the fact that I believe, no, the N64, that's what I'm thinking of. Certain consoles had like little extensions to make them stronger, and I want to say the Dreamcast had something, but I don't remember. Anyways, this is not a brand new concept, but it is a concept that hasn't been around for a while. And if you know Nintendo and the way they develop their console specifically, Nintendo never does this. Actually, if nothing else, this really lends to the idea that Nintendo is looking at the Switch as more of a handheld than a console. Please tell me that I didn't waste anything. Thank God! It was only canned air. If it was lighter fluid, I'd be dead. Because Nintendo always changes how their handhelds roll. Usually what it is they release a handheld. Then probably about 2 to 3 years in its lifespan, you get a variation to it. Whether it was the DS Lite, whether it was the Game Boy Advance SP, whether it was the 3DS XL, or whether it's the Nintendo Switch Lite. That's what they do with their handhelds. They have a tendency of always trying to refresh it and make it more appealing to people still coming in. It's an easy way you would think to get burnout, but then again it works so well. It's worked consistently well throughout all their consoles. Refreshes happen all the time, but Pro versions aren't that logical, especially for a console that's already the weakest of the bunch. Like, think about it. You have the PlayStation 4 Pro, you have the Xbox One X, and then you have the Nintendo Switch. A Nintendo Switch is not even as strong as an OG Xbox One, right? Which would be the weaker of the Sony and Xbox consoles. The Xbox One is the, if you don't include Nintendo, is the weakest, has the weakest console. It also has the strongest console. It's a weird conundrum. But the Nintendo Switch isn't even as strong as the Xbox One. As we were seeing early in the generation, the Xbox One was struggling with certain games where it couldn't hit the same benchmarks as the PlayStation 4 version. So what's the point of spending in all that money for a Nintendo Switch Pro when it will only kinda help? Like, the best it could get is close to an Xbox One, and I don't think it'll even get that close. So in Nintendo's minds, it logically doesn't make any sense to sit there and invest all this money into a console that won't really get that much further in results. Especially when the reason why you play this thing is for the handheld play. Now, I'm not saying a Pro version will hurt. I'm just saying Nintendo is not the type to just do that. Nintendo is the type to make a slightly better version, maybe in another year or so, and then like just release a brand new console at the end of the generation. Like that's what Nintendo would do. So I understand that you guys are console only fans and you don't really understand how the handheld game works. But Nintendo has never been a company that has concerned themselves with chasing the power. Actually, to me, it doesn't make sense for you to still be a Nintendo fan since they haven't done that since what, the GameCube era? The GameCube era was the last time they really put in some effort in terms of power, and they always had some weird stipulation on their console still, like with the mini CDs. But the Wii was the first. It was the first like obvious. We ain't really worrying about that. And even the Wii U, even though it was the strongest of the consoles that came out at the time, the Wii U wasn't like... The Wii U could have went way further than it did and still chose to undershoot itself. Nintendo always prided itself on its gameplay experiences, the games and IPs, and like the Nintendo experience. The experience you could only get with a Nintendo console. Now, whether that experience was good or not, that depends on the individual, but that's the way they used to hang with it. So the Pro idea for a Nintendo Switch, although it wouldn't hurt, doesn't seem that beneficial, especially when they have a tried and true practice that has consistently made them money, and it will still make them money. But the point I'm trying to make is that like a Pro version is something that if they do, it'll be a very small increment. Because like I said, Nintendo focuses on experiences, not necessarily tech. I don't know how you play Nintendo consoles and are still under this assumption that Nintendo is out here chasing these high-powered products. They will never do that. Nintendo isn't playing the same game that Sony and Xbox are playing. In some ways, I think Nintendo's like, look, we have to do something, but we can't keep doing this. Because the console box in itself is becoming more and more of a pain in the ass than a cool thing to get. Because the console boxes have become more and more like PCs. So how do you still make a console experience special compared to someone who now has a PC in their home for whatever reason they have it for, and then they can also buy games on that fucking thing? Like, what do? Well, you start branching in the markets, and ironically enough, Nintendo already had their foot in the handheld market beforehand. Nintendo's focus will never be power. I don't think they have to think it's logical to do a power move. I think Nintendo has learned that the way the game is shifted, if you can create something interesting and something that is convenient, then there's no reason. And I guess the best way to kind of demonstrate this is the fact that like when you talk to fans of the Switch, a lot of people tell you the reason why they're focusing on handheld mode is because that's probably the more played mode than anything else. A lot of people sit here and say it's dock mode. That's not true. I would actually bet money it's probably handheld mode is more played. And why? Because half of the appeal of the Switch is to play home console titles on the go. It's not to play on the go titles on the console. You know why? Because that doesn't sound nowhere near as appealing. Has anyone tried to play a 3DS or a PSP port? They fucking suck. Unlimited World Red, I'm looking at your bitch ass. I hate that fucking game. Game is such a lazy piece of shit. Actually, the game's probably fine for the 3DS and PSP, but fuck that. That Wii U experience was garbage because it's still an up-res 3DS game. So the reason why the Lite makes more sense than the Pro is because more than likely people are still playing this more in handheld. What's a cooler thing to talk about? Do people talk about playing Doom on the console, or do they talk about playing Doom on a handheld? Doom on a handheld looks way fucking cooler. I can sit in a laundromat and punch these high-res demons in the face. That's a cool-ass proposition. You know what isn't cool? Playing a fucking game at like 576p. Or like 600 or 700p. Sometimes 720p. That's the problem with the Switch. The handheld proposition of it is obviously the more appealing part of it than the dock one. So like making a Pro doesn't really, I mean, not saying the Pro wouldn't help, but the Pro doesn't do a lot. The Pro is doubling down on a part of the Switch that people don't care about as much. Not saying people don't care, obviously people care, that's why people got mad. But the reason why the Switch is cool is because everyone has jobs now, right? You have responsibilities, you have things to do, you have places to go. So of course, what's more appealing if I'm a YouTuber or if I'm someone who travels is to go across the world and play Smash Brothers on a plane and still get a full console experience versus going home and docking it and realizing, oh, it's only in 1080p. Why isn't it in 1440p for my 4K monitor? That's the difference. So a Lite is a doubling down on a market that is definitely interested. And to get people who don't want to deal with the bullshit that the dock version of the Switch brings, the Lite is the perfect and the obvious choice. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for the support. This has been the Insane Game Freak. Let's game, play to win, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.